We're going to do a Mount Rushmore of the Detroit sports. Who is the face of the Detroit sports right now? Doesn't have to be all players. You don't have to include every single team. I'm not going to because I think there's one team that isn't really worthy of having a face on there. So my faces would be Riley Green, Cade Cunningham, Dan Campbell, Aiden Hutchinson. Aiden Hutchinson, face of Detroit because, well, he's from the area. Was the highest draft pick on the team. He was drafted to be the best player on the Detroit Lions, and before his injury was that. It's just a matter of can he get back to that. Dan Campbell embodies every Detroit team's culture, the grit, the hustle. That all stems from him, even with the Pistons, even with the Tigers. Riley Green, the golden boy, drafted out of high school. We've watched this guy grow up right in front of our eyes. He is now a two-time All-Star. Everything that we were promised that Riley Green could be, he is becoming, and it's coming to fruition right now, which has been so fun to watch. So that's why he is the face of the Tigers to me over Tarek Skubal. And then Cade Cunningham, the Pistons All-Star, the guy, the franchise that this team is built around. Those would be my four guys.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to disagree with any of the guys you include because there's so many good Detroit faces. That's what makes this tough. You could have a second Mount Rushmore, and it would be like in debate to be on the first Mount Rushmore, right?
Who would be the second Mount Rushmore?
Well, I mean, mine is different than yours. But
all right, let's hear
according to yours, you would have Tarek Skubal. You would have Penei Sewell. You would have probably Jahmyr Gibbs or Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Mm-hmm.
And then probably throw a Red Wing in there, right? At that point. Larkin.
Yeah, I guess Larkin
another
would
Michigan
be in
man
there.
with the Hutchinson ties.
Yeah. I just don't like rewarding teams that aren't successful at this moment in
Javi
time.
Baez, maybe?
No, I don't think Javi would make the list for me.
Well, not Javi, but...
Oh, that's my boy right there. That's Javier Bays.
Javier, I just don't think he'd be on the list for me, if I'm being honest.
No, you're right. I agree. But my Mount Rushmore is different than Ben's. I do have Cade Cunningham. I do have Dan Campbell. I think Dan Campbell is the biggest lock of anyone. We kind of already discussed that.
I think it's Cade.
It probably is Cade.
You can't have the Mount Rushmore without Cade.
Yeah. I have Tarek Skubal on mine. I think it's really hard to leave him off. I don't disagree with any of Ben's points that Riley Green should be on. I understand all of those. I would just probably rather have them both on than leaving Skubal off. Potentially the two-time Cy Young winner. One of the better players I've ever seen in a Tigers jersey. And that's from a really good Tigers team we got to watch when we were young. So Skubal's on mine. I lean Penei Sewell over Aiden Hutchinson. Just because Sewell, like Ben mentioned earlier, locked to make the Hall of Fame. A lock to be a Lion for life. Hutchinson probably is a Lion for life too, but hasn't gotten extended. Had a really serious injury last year, but has the Michigan ties. So that kind of gives him the edge. I understand. I go Penei Sewell.
If I was going to do a second one, I think Sewell would be on there. Skubal.
Goff's probably on it, actually.
For me, it'd be Skubal, Sewell, Amon-Ra.
Hinch, Goff.
No.
Brad Holmes.
That last one is tough. No, I don't think it'd be Brad
Sheila
Holmes. Is it crazy to say Brian Branch?
Yeah.
Why?
Over Gibbs.
Yeah, it probably would be Gibbs then. I'm sorry, I'm just
or
not
St.
rewarding.
Brown.
I already said St. Brown. I'm just not rewarding a Red Wing. I'm just not doing it. Sorry. Make the playoffs. All these other teams have.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, maybe a third Mount Rushmore they can get a couple guys on. But
I don't think there's a third Tiger that really qualifies. I'm not going to put Glaber on there. He's just not a face. I guess Riley kind of does.
Torkelson's kind of a face.
But is he good enough?
Probably not. But it's like the Jared Goff thing.
I'm just not
he's
putting
still
Jared
the
Goff
face
on
of the
mine
team.
either.
Torkelson is still one of the faces of this Tigers team.
That's
sure.
true, but I just don't think he's good enough to be.
Which is
that
totally
actually
fair.
might be disrespectful towards him. I just don't know if I'd have him over there over some of the other guys on that list. With Goff, it's I don't know. He's one of the more recognizable faces, but I don't know if he's the guy I would choose to represent the Lions.
Right.
There's just a handful of players that are just better at their respective jobs than Jared Goff is at his, if that makes sense.
But none of these other guys have chance all across the city.
I thought everyone was done. Are we done with the Jared Goff chants?
Yeah.
Can we be done with that? If I hear that
It
tomorrow,
still happened though, right?
It did still happen. Yeah, that's correct. The best Jared Goff chant story I have is when I was in East Lansing after a Saturday Michigan State game, and some brawl broke out on the street. Like, I'm talking like 15 guys are just like throwing hands, and I'm just watching it from this. This is like me in my element. If I had a bucket of popcorn, I would have just plopped down on a little lawn chair and watched that forever. And then all of a sudden, Jared Goff chants started breaking out.
That's hilarious.
That was funny. That is when the
stuff
Jared
is
Goff
funny.
chant's appropriate. When it's not appropriate is when the Pistons are trying to fight for a playoff spot or in the playoffs, and that stupid
and
chant
Kate
gets
Cunningham
started.
shooting free throws, and instead of MVP chants, it's Jared Goff chants.
Yeah, that is annoying.
I also think the Jared Goff chants at the Lions games are all totally valid.
Pre-game, yeah, but once the game starts,
I think whenever.
whatever.
I think whenever.
I know the Red Wings fans got really mad at the Jared Goff stuff because they like the "Let's Go Red Wings" chant, which I totally
get it. Yeah,
validate as well. I think
we are done with the good Jared Goff chants.
Yeah, especially after the playoffs. It's like, all right, let's move on from that chant. Let's start chanting something else.
I do think though it is because of how big of a lock Dan Campbell is, and we discussed this a little bit earlier, but like trying to think of who the second biggest face of Detroit is, non-athlete wise,
I just don't think there is
very
one.
interesting. But like I'm saying, if there is one, I think it's a tough discussion, right?
I think
because AJ Hinch has really brought so much to Detroit.
And he's probably going to win Manager of the Year in the American League. So
Right.
it's probably just him. You could get creative and say Sheila, but
I think Sheila has a good case.
I do too.
Like, has totally flipped around the way the Lions ownership is viewed.
She's the one that hired Brad Holmes
Yes.
and Dan Campbell. Like she's kind
And
of the
she's
reason that
still
this thing got
super
put
involved. Like, she is very involved in a good way. Whereas a lot of NFL owners are involved in a bad way.
MCDC and Holmes never have anything but positive things to say about her. Like, we're able to do our jobs because we have all the support in the world from ownership. So, like, that counts for something, but I also don't think they can be, like, the face. You know what I mean? Like, an owner
Right.
probably shouldn't be the face of your city.
No, I agree.
If there's going to be an owner, it's probably the guy who owns two teams
Yeah.
in Illich.
Yeah, but he's a face in a bad way.
Yeah, which is funny
How about
because
Tom Gores, man? Look, he's bringing back the
yeah,
shock.
I was going to say,
Like-
another guy who owns two teams.
And he really did change the way he was viewed. I know the Pistons really haven't done enough to be like, Gores is awesome.
No, but the fact that he was willing to cut ties with Monty Williams
Yes.
and pay the contract all, $76
After it was a
million
clear
that
mistake
were-
of his, too.
Yeah,
Like,
'cause
he
he
owned up to
demanded.
his mistake.
Yes, that to me was like a huge Tom Gores, like, kind of in support of this guy from this point forward if he's willing to do that. And then it became a lot less involved in the decision making, which was ultimately a good thing because I just can't believe how big of a mess it got last season. But that was last season. That was 2 seasons ago at this point. But yeah, I think Dan Campbell being on there is basically a lock, and I don't know how many other cities across the United States could say that about a coach. Probably Kansas City, maybe Miami with Spoelstra, like you mentioned. But that's probably it. That's probably it.
Yeah, as far as like big sports cities go.
It'd have to be a football coach. I don't think another manager or anything.
And
maybe
who are the other
Spoelstra, just
football
'cause.
coaches? Like
Andy Reid.
Like Sirianni's not making Phillies.
Yeah, and I don't think Sean McVay definitely wouldn't make LA's.
No.
It might just be the two. It might be Dan Campbell in Detroit and Andy Reid in Kansas
Mike
City.
Tomlin in Pittsburgh. Can we do Pittsburgh? Because they don't even have a basketball team.
Well, it'd be Skeens. It'd be Cruz,
Sidney
Crosby, TJ Watt. So, no, I don't think Tomlin's on that.
You think Cruz and Skeens, the worst professional team, has 2 guys?
What do you want me to put DK Metcalf in there?
Aaron Rodgers.
No, he hasn't even played a game. He hasn't even played a game for
Yeah,
them
you're
yet.
right.
No. 989-837-6125. Who would be on your Detroit sports Mount Rushmore?